I was in Vincent. There's a bunch of different Saxon for a bit. I was in Hilltop. I was at Bennett for a little bit, Vincent for a little bit, Williams for a little bit. So kind of made my round.
Were you around for Mr. Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was a couple of different places. But I usually associate myself with Vincent, so that's kind of where I spend most. But before I start, are there any specific questions that you guys have before I start? You know, about anything specific? No? All right, well, I mean, you guys are an SIL, so you're kind of already making your way towards, you know, bigger and better things. So I imagine there's not too much that I gotta, you know, walk you guys through or tell you about, because I mean, I'd imagine if you're an SIL, you've successfully completed program. I mean, the main thing I've been telling everyone, that every class that I've seen today is, you know, just remember that when you leave, like when you're done at SIL, or wherever you're coming from or wherever you're going, it's going to be hard, especially if you're doing it yourself and you're leaving by yourself. It's going to be hard going out. Don't want anybody to leave. It's going to be easy because it's not. When I first left, I don't even call myself a successful discharge because I was successfully discharged from Vincent home, but I wasn't from Hilltop. I signed myself out. And that definitely made it a lot harder. You know, just, you know, when you successfully transition, you know, a lot of the stuff are going to help you find an apartment. I would hope that, you know, by the time you're there, you have a job. And you know, setting up insurance, setting up a bank account, all that stuff. And, you know, it's not going to be easy going up. You're going to have to, you know, when you're an SIL, they pretty much provide food. They pretty much provide everything you need, especially when you're in the group homes. But I mean, you know, then it goes to when you're out on your own, doing everything for yourself, you know, paying your bills, doing all that. And it's not in any way easy. When I first left, I couch hopped for a little bit. And then I met my fiance and we've been together 3 years. And I'd say by the time we first met was when I really like, you know, I got a set job and then I moved in with him and we had our first apartment and then I was working a better job after that. So I got a better apartment and now we live there. But I mean, I don't really know much of what to tell you guys. You guys are already making the next transition.
What were some of your struggles signing out and not having any support anymore from your county?
I definitely say the biggest struggle is like, you know, no more financial support, no like resources. Like they kind of give you a general idea of resources. And then I went to college for social work. So I had started that program already into being here. I didn't end up finishing like 2 classes of it. Just because my life got so crazy. You know, like the biggest struggle was not having any kind of help financially. Like I didn't give them time to help me set up an apartment or to set up, you know, solid support or, you know, help me continue doing school. So, you know, signing myself out rather than doing it the right way. Definitely put, you know, a big roadblock for me, which is what made it so hard to get on my feet for so long. Because I didn't know what I was doing. Like I learned about stuff. You know, I learned about, you know, how to open a bank account, how to, you know, manage your checking account, how to keep a house clean, how to cook meals. Like I knew that, but I didn't know, you know, really how to navigate things where I would have had that had I stayed. But I think that's, you know, definitely what made it hard was, because I mean, you can call whenever you want. You can call, whatever homes you were at, you can call whatever independent livings you were at. And I'm sure they always have an ear to talk to you. But, like, once you cut yourself off from that, there's no financial support. There's no, like, we'll help you get this, this, and this. Like, everything that I had to do, I got myself. Like, I furnished my whole apartment on my own. I had to pay my rent, my security deposit on my own. And then a big thing that comes with that is, I don't know how good some of you guys are with your family. But that can be a factor too. Not having stable family life or not having a stable family support can make it a lot harder. Like, I didn't have any kind of family support. Like, my mom would be there for me to talk to occasionally. And then I didn't start talking to my dad again until like a year after I left. Like a year after I left Adelphi. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that was the biggest struggle, transitioning incorrectly. So definitely take advantage of, like, what they're trying to help you with and what they're trying to offer. Because I mean, they're gonna give you some great resources to, manage yourself outside of here. A big thing is, I don't know if you guys have anger issues or anything, any of you guys. But a big thing is, making sure that once you're out there, you're managing your emotions correctly. Like, I've told a couple classes. So I worked at a gas station for about a year. After I first met my fiance, and that wasn't too bad. It just wasn't what I wanted to specifically do. So then I started working at a nursing home. That was pretty rough. I was doing like 12, 16-hour shifts. I was a med tech, so I had to pass meds. And then, once you get mandated to stay on another shift that's not yours, makes it particularly hard passing meds that you're not familiar with. So, that was hard to deal with, but I always tried to do my best to get through it. And then now I do home health care. And one thing I've been telling a couple of classes that I've talked to is, so, I mean, especially in my field, you're going to have good clients and you're going to have bad clients. You're going to have clients you get along with and ones that you don't necessarily want to talk to, you just think to do it. Like, a big one for me was a couple clients ago. Haven't worked with her for a while now, but had a female client, and they said she had dementia, but it was like really low stage dementia. And then her husband had dementia as well. It was like, a lot more advanced. But this client, she was particularly disrespectful. And I always do the best that I can to treat everyone with respect, just because I dealt with all that stuff in the past, disrespecting people, not behaving, talking back, I already did all that stuff and it's all news. So, I mean, especially with you guys moving on, you're going to want to be more positive. So, like, it was hard to manage myself, being in that situation. She accused me of stealing, and I never once stole from any of my clients. She would, just randomly disrespect me or be rude to me. And then she found out I was gay, and that made it worse because, some older people are like, more open-minded, okay with that kind of thing. Whereas others just hate it. They can't accept it. And she was one of the ones that couldn't. So when she found that out, because I usually fabricate when I go into a client's home, I'll be like, oh yeah, I have a fiance, but I won't say if it's a man or a woman. And then if they ask more about my fiance, I'll be like, oh, they this, they that, like not giving a specific gender. And then if I start to feel open with them, then I'll be like, okay, I lied to you a little bit. It's not a big lie, just I'm gay actually. Like I did that with the client that I have now, and she was really accepting of it. She was like, I have a sister that's a lesbian. I don't have a problem with it. So, but this client, she, dragged that on. And then it was just one particular day where it was just, excuse my language, but it was a shit show. She started with accusing me of stealing, and I said, listen, there's nothing in your house that I need to take that I can't pay for myself. I said, I don't want anything of yours. I have not touched anything of yours. I have 2 bags here. They're both small, but you're more than welcome to check them. And she kind of just let it go. But then she, somewhere along the line, found out about me being gay, dragged out and was like, why don't you leave? Why don't you go be with your friend? And I was like, I'll try to go home. I was like, I'm, already not really enjoying my time here, so I'll see if I can go home. And I called them and they were like, well, I know it's difficult, but we need you to stay. She was like, if you just leave and they don't tell you to leave, then it's abandonment. So I was like, okay, I'll go back in, I'll deal with it. So I went back in and she was like, so mind you, beforehand, I had cleared up with, like on my side and their side, that when I was there, because I was there like 10 hours a day. So for the first part of the shift, I was with the female client. And then for the next part of the shift, I was with the male client. So like when I was there for her, I was there for her. When I was there for him, I was there for him. Well, this particular day, when we're already not off to a great start, she was like, go throw the ball with him. And I was like, okay. So I went over to him and I picked the ball up and I was like, hey buddy, do you want to exercise your hands a little bit and, throw the ball back and forth? And she was like, I didn't ask you to do it. She was like, I told you to do it. And I said, well, as you've clarified already, when I'm here for him, I'm here for him. When I'm here for you, I'm here for you. And by that point, she was done. So she was like, I want you to leave right now. She was like, I want you to get out of my house. And I said, well, if you want me to leave, you're going to have to call. You're going to have to tell them that you'd like me to leave today. And she was like, fine, give me the number. So I gave her the number. I told her what buttons to push to get to the office. And she's talking all this crap, talking about she wanted me to leave and tried to say that I stole and everything. And my manager was like, because she could hear me there. And she was like, just head home for the day. She was like, it's fine, don't worry about it. So I headed out, and as soon as I stepped out on that lady's porch, my manager texted me and she was like, hey, just come down to the office for a little bit. She was like, I just want to talk to you. So I went down there. I was like, I'll be down there in 5 minutes. So I went and she sat down with me and she was like, listen, it's not your fault. She's like, you did nothing wrong. She was like, I don't want you to stress out. She's like, this lady has been through like 9 caregivers already. She was like, yeah, she was like, she's been through like 9 caregivers already. She's like, you're not going to be the first and you're not going to be the last to want to work with me. And then they just switched me to another case. So like, a big thing is going to be your communication, rather than I could have taken that a different route and been like, F you, I'm leaving anyways, have a nice life. But instead, I just dealt with it because, somewhere along the line, I mean, they are already old, but somewhere along the line, they might realize like, hey, he was pretty nice. I should have treated him a lot better. But I mean, you just can't take it to heart. And I know, especially with you guys working, you're going to have times when you're going to be pissed off. You don't want to do something that your boss is asking you to do. Or you might just think there's no point to it. But I mean, just remember that is your boss. And I mean, do you want to keep that job or do you not want to keep that job? Because if you don't enjoy it and you don't want to keep the job, then I would say, talk to, are you still unit director over at Sexton? Talk to your unit director and be like, hey, listen, I don't like this job. It's not going well. I want to maybe put in my 2 weeks and find somewhere else. And definitely put in your 2 weeks because there's been times where I've quit jobs and I wish I could get them back. Like that gas station job, there's been times where I don't have clients. Do you have? Oh, okay. I'll get you as soon as. There's been
The gas station.
Gas station.
yes. There's been times where I wanted to, just pick up time part-time at that gas station. But the issue is I quit instead of putting in my 2 weeks because I was having issues with the manager. And I had an issue with the assistant manager. And I will admit, in that moment with the assistant manager, I didn't get fired for it. But there was one singular time where I kind of flipped my lid. She was being rude to me all this day. I had just come in for a stocking shift and she was just being rude for no reason. So I had asked her, I was like, do you want me to help you, do you want me to help you figure out the drawer? And she was like, no, it's fine. And then she was like, oh, I really need a cigarette. And I was like, if you want, I'll watch Register so you can go and smoke your cigarette. Because I was familiar with Register. That was where I usually worked. And then she was like, no, it's fine. And then I went and I talked to one of my coworkers and I was like, she's just being so disrespectful today. And I was like, it's really, really upsetting me. And we were just talking about it and she was like, if you're unhappy with the way things are, you can go home. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm doing my work. I'll be fine with what I'm doing. And then I was like, I'll just talk to you later. And then I went back and I started doing my stuff again. And I could see her whispering to the girl that I had just been talking to. And that just set me off. So, I mean, there are going to be times where you just flip your lid. It happens to everyone, but that's happily, that's what I can say is one of the singular times that I've lost my cool when I've been at work, but it's all about, managing yourself appropriately. If you don't like the job, really, honestly, don't do it, but do put in your 2 weeks so that if you want to, at some point later in life, you can go back and work there. But now because I quit, I don't have the opportunity to work there again. And then I know you
My
have,
question for you is, you said you signed yourself up. The reason for that was,
so like I said, I will never say that I was a successful discharge
right,
because I wasn't. But when I was at Hilltop, I had a phone that I wasn't supposed to have and I got caught with it. And then I had been in Adelphi for 4 years at that point. So I was just at the point where I was done with it all. And that was the last straw for me. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to leave. Now, do I wish that I had went about that differently and had just given them the phone and kept my job that I had and successfully transitioned? Yeah, I do. I definitely do. Because things would have been better for me going out. But I do also kind of like the way that things ended up for me because, I mean, essentially everything happens for a reason. So, I might not have met Cameron. I might not have had the kind of life that I have now. Do you guys have any questions yet? Anything you want to know about? Do your taxes? Just joking. No, they've made that really easy now because now they have the mobile banking apps where you can just go put your stuff right in and then they send the money to you.
Oh.
And you're on your way.
we just did that, ex-USA.
Oh, yeah.
How's it growing up with people who have different interests than you? Was it hard
Being in a group home,
yeah,
it's hard. I'll admit it's hard, but I mean, I was at group homes well before I came to group home. I had been in group homes since I was 13. I just wasn't successful at any of the others. I'm originally from New York State, so they tried a bunch of places that didn't want me, and Delphi was finally okay. And it's not easy. It's never easy, especially living in a house with a bunch of other dudes that you don't know. And then random strangers get put in, it's hard. But it's all about, I mean, essentially at the end of the day, you have to remember that you're not there for anyone else, you're there for yourself. A lot of what I told, some of the other homes that I've talked to is big thing is internalizing everything that you think. Because I would imagine almost every group home has some type of work that you can do. And obviously you can't go into independent living until you've shown that you've internalized what you think. So, big thing is, working on yourself, internalizing that treatment that you learned, and really working within yourself and focusing on yourself to try to improve those things. Because I mean, there's tons of opportunities in there. That's what we had. But I remember those treatment and, I do my best to remember my treatment. And then use my coping skills. That's a big thing is, using your coping skills. Like, I definitely know that when it comes to me and my fiance Cameron, I'm a lot better at communicating than he is. He'd rather just cuss me out and then come back 10 minutes later and say everything's okay. Whereas I'm the type that's like, hey, listen, we just had a fight. Like, you can't just let that go because either you're gonna hold on to it or I'm gonna hold on to it. And it's not gonna go good from there. So we might as well sit, have a 10, 15-minute conversation and figure out what went wrong, why we got in the fight, and what we can do to move on from that. So like, there's a lot of things that I'm sure some of you guys might have learned from different places that you're at or that you were at that are gonna help you when you go on, whether it be substance abuse, whether it be, like sexual issues or anything like that. Is really focusing on why. I mean, the big thing is when you're in the group home, realizing what you did wrong and taking accountability for it. So with following that along, once you leave, is remembering that how you made that mistake, why you made that mistake, and what you can do to not make that mistake again. Did you have a question? Okay, I didn't know if you were just playing with your hair or you have a question?
I don't know if this is gonna be personal, but I feel like, some people need to hear, like, what was your difficulty establishing your sexual orientation, like, while in Whitman?
I mean, I pretty much knew who I was when I went into treatment. The big thing was, I mean, like I said, I was from Vincent, so obviously I had sexual. So the big thing was learning how to keep myself from being sexually inappropriate. That was the big thing. Because I mean, I was at Saxman at one point in time. And that is part of why I got sent back to Vincent, was because I had messed up while I was there. So it's, big on like, taking what you've learned and applying that forward, to not make the same mistake. I kind of forgot your question halfway through.
It was about your sexual orientation.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I pretty much knew who I was, going into it. But like I said, just leading myself appropriately from there, especially with the fact that, I was 16 when I came in. That's like your heightened sexual period of life. So especially when you've already had sexual issues before that, is going forward from that and figuring out how you're going to lead yourself appropriately. Like I could have left Hilltop and I could have done what I did before again. But instead of doing that, I sought out a healthy relationship. I've had a couple relationships and a lot of them weren't the best, but I still managed myself appropriately in them, whether we got in fights or whatever might have happened. Like I'm actually friends with a lot of my exes. We don't talk every day or every month or anything, but every so often, like we'll say like, hey, how's it going? I have one of them is my friend on TikTok. We'll send TikToks back and forth. One of them lets me use his Prime Video because he pays for a lot more than I do. So I mean, that's like a nice perk, but like we're all pretty cordial. There's some that I don't talk to because they're just so unhinged that I just can't deal with it. Like even when it came to Cameron, like I had to be really, I don't know how to say, like fragile when it came to him because Cameron has been, whereas I was in a situation where I was the abuser, Cameron was in a situation where he was the victim. So when it came to, intimate settings or whatever was happening, I had to lead myself really carefully through that and respect his boundaries because I didn't want to trigger him or hurt him all over again. So like, that's even part of, taking what I've learned and applying it forward because I didn't want to be insensitive to him. And if he needs to talk about something, I'm a big person on talking. He doesn't really like to talk all that much, but I love to motor mouth. So, like if he ever needs somebody to talk to, I'm always supportive of him. I try my best to integrate my treatment where I can, not just for myself, but for other people, because you don't have to just apply it to yourself. And like I said, whatever it may be, it doesn't just apply to the issues that I had while I was here. It applies to, whatever it might be, because all these workbooks and all these programs are in some way set up the same. It's just a different issue that you're focusing on. So, that's all.
Being that you're being honest about like coming from Vincent Home, a lot of these guys have also come from offender programs. Just when you met your fiance, like how hard was it, or how did you like be honest with them about what you know what I mean? Like just kind of so he knew what you had done.
Yeah, I'll let them know.
I did tell them about that too. So I mean, it's a big thing telling somebody what you did, being honest. I know that's something that a lot of us, even I did myself, I was afraid, like, what are people gonna think of me? Are people gonna think I'm a sex offender or I'm just some terrible person? And the staff members aren't wrong when they tell you to associate yourself with people that are going to make your life better. When I told Cameron, I think we had been together a couple months or maybe a year. And then I was like, hey, listen, I was at this place, we did this. This is why I was there. And I was honest with him about it. And he accepted me and he was like, well, thank you for telling me. And he didn't treat me any kind of way. I have my best friend, Haley. Me and her have been friends since a month after me and Cameron met. And I think a year into us being friends, I told her what I did, and she was like, well, at least you went to treatment and you got help for it. She was like, I'm not gonna, treat you any differently. I'm not gonna think of you any differently. She was like, you're still the same friend that I've always had. So it's all about integrating yourself with people that you're gonna feel comfortable around, because you're gonna have a lot of fake friends through life. I have a lot of fake friends. I have people on Snapchat and Facebook and wherever else that live in the exact same town as me, but never once asked me to hang out or spend time with me or watch a movie or go do something fun. So it's all about integrating yourself. Like the people that I hang out with on a regular basis are the people that I know have my back and will support me. Like my friend Haley, whenever I need something, she's there. I've never once had to ask her for money because I work, but I've helped her out with stuff. If she needs something, I help her out. Even when it comes to me and Cameron, we're really fluid between each other, like in the sense that, if he needs help covering something, I'll help him. If I need help covering something, he'll help me. Like when I lived, because we had a period where we lived apart. We've been together a year. We were fighting. We weren't getting along. And it just wasn't going great. And I was like, how about this? I was like, I hate this apartment. It's 1 bedroom, cramped. I was like, I hate this apartment. So I was like, I have a better paying job now. So how about I get another apartment that's bigger and nicer? And then after a year, with our finances being separated and everything being separate, I was like, you come live with me. And then we decided it would work out well. I got my own place. If I needed a couple bucks towards rent because something took out of my account, he'd send me the money for it. And, the same, going across, like if he needed something, I'd help him. Where I would really go. Are there any other questions?
We're gonna wrap up, Robby.
Oh, okay.
To go, oh, yeah.
Okay.
So you didn't successfully discharge but you successfully discharged from Vincent. What changed between that? Because when you successfully discharged from Vincent, you went to Hilltop, like you said, but then you didn't successfully discharge the state, you just said you signed yourself out. What changed from being that one client who successfully discharged, the one who just signed himself out, wanted to get out of there.